Every haunted place has a story with a dark past. This is Ghost Encounters Podcast. Due to the graphic and violent things discussed on this episode, listener discretion is advised. Welcome back, all you spooky people, to the Ghost Encounters Podcast. I am paranormal investigator Justin Torok. This is the last episode of the second season. Unfortunately, Jordan could not be here today. She has some family in town and she's going to be on vacation in a few days, so she is not here today. She's very sorry and sad that she could not be here, but I am not entirely alone today. I do have someone on Zoom over 3,000 miles away in England. Please welcome Georgia. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. How are you? It's great to be on this.
Very good. I'm glad I can finally get you on the podcast. So Georgia has been dealing with some hauntings for a very long time in your current house and in your old house. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's gone over about 15 years.
Wow. So that's a long time to be dealing with a haunting, especially in the place that you live. It's definitely something that takes a toll on you a bit, especially when activity has, heightened. What was it, 2 years ago now that you reached out to me?
Yeah, a long time ago.
It's been that long already, yeah. So Georgia reached out to me via Instagram. She knew what I did. We have a similar musical interest, and that's kind of how that started. But she knew what I did, so she started asking me some questions and kind of asking me for help and guidance on what to do, because she's got kind of fed up with what was going on in her house and some scary things from our conversations. But before we get into that, I always ask all of our guests, what was your first, and this is probably going to tie in right into your story, but what was your first ever ghost encounter?
It probably would have been at my old house. It was probably when I was about 12. My nan had passed away, and I think everyone got really interested in what you couldn't see, like ghosts and stuff. And I remember she always said to us that she'd come back and tell us she was okay. So everyone got sort of fixated on what would happen, and everyone would randomly call out at night and stuff. And there was many a time when you'd get something back, and I think we all sort of naively thought it was her, and I think we ended up bringing in something that we shouldn't, because after that we had really, really bad problems at that house. But we used to use apps and stuff that would flash if they went near something, and I guarantee they probably weren't legit ones, but I think in a way we kind of opened up something that we shouldn't have. I don't even know what it was, but that old house was terrible in the end. It drove us out. We ended up moving, but it got me into knowing more about it all. I got into watching the ghost shows. I got into hearing about Lorraine Warren and stuff, and I really got into all the paranormal because of that, because it went on at that house for 10 years. It didn't stop. So that's probably the first time that I started to see things at that house, was when we were mucking about with I think they were called EMFs, and
EMF detectors, yeah.
And you started to, we started seeing dark figures in areas of the house and stuff, because we'd been mucking with that. I think we'd drawn something in. I still don't understand how we did, because we didn't use a Ouija board or anything, but I think we brought something in, and it started from when I was about 12, and ever since it seems, I don't know, maybe they're attracted to us or something, I don't know, but we seem to have problems everywhere we go.
That's crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't say apps on a phone would actually work, just because they don't have the hardware in the equipment that we use, but when you start looking for entities and start asking questions and actually wanting to conjure up some kind of activity, if there is something around you, then 100% you will start experiencing things, because you are actively asking it to show you that it's there, right?
Yeah, I assume that. I mean, I was 12. I had no idea what I was doing.
What other kind of things happened in that first house?
Oh, all sorts. You always heard women talking. If you were like standing upstairs, you heard them downstairs. There was always someone in the garage area. You had they ran at me once. It was like a black shadowy figure ran from the door straight at me, and I had to duck. I thought it was going to hit me.
Wow.
You would hear people calling mum at night, so it really distressed. There was, I distinctly remember there was some old man that I saw in a mirror once. It was horrible. It was sort of, I was looking in the mirror and he was behind my shoulder. And right up until the very end of us leaving there, they were throwing moving boxes. I remember we were in the garage again, and there was nails and stuff that started hitting us, and
Wow.
It was really horrible there. It drove us out in the end. It was terrible.
Yeah, whatever was there definitely did not want you there if it's throwing things at you, right? That's definitely a stressful situation to be living in a house where bad things are actively happening to you. How far away was that house from your current house?
It's about 45 minutes away. It's quite a
way
away.
So it's a bit away. Ever do any kind of research in that area or the house that you were in?
I looked up the house history a lot, and I think I saw that guy in the mirror, and my brother saw the same guy. We didn't tell each other what they looked like, but we both explained the same person. So I went looking through the history of the area, and we managed to work out it was someone that owned the farm before the house was built. And he was supposed to be a really horrible guy, and I suppose it must have been him, because we both saw the same person.
Yeah.
I don't know how we both managed to work out from descriptions that it was the same person. Then you see an image of them and it's the spit of them. It's really creepy.
Yeah, what was that like? Like, knowing that you and your brother saw this spirit, and then you see a picture of the farmer guy that used to live there, and it's the same person. What was the thought that went through your head? Did you get the chills? What happened to you?
Creepy. It was seriously creepy, and the thought that it wasn't just you and you weren't going mad was a kind of a relief in a way. Yeah, it wasn't good at all. I mean, that house was terrible. There was so many issues at that place, and it went on. I had a diary. I wrote down everything, every date, every time, and it filled up in the end.
Oh, I'm sure.
So much. I recorded it on my phone. You'd hear footsteps walking around the lounge at night. It was like a hard boot on a floor. There was a cabinet in our lounge. The doors would open all the time. We even tied it up. It managed to undo it. It was terrible, that house. Really bad. But wow. I mean, at the time, I was interested in it, but terrified at the same time.
Well, yeah, that's where you live. That's where you try to sleep. That's where you're supposed to feel safest. And all of a sudden, now you have some kind of entity throwing things at you, making noises throughout the night. It gets scary, especially when it happens so often. What year did you move out?
2018, I think it was. It was right at the end. We tried to move out at the beginning of the year, but I can't remember why we didn't. And then every time that we then put it on the market again at the end of the year, and we managed to sell it. But ever since we said about selling, it was when things started to really get thrown at us. Moving boxes would get chucked on the floor, and it was to the point where it got dark and you dreaded it getting dark, and you had to go up to your bedroom before it got dark, because it all happened downstairs. It never really ventured up, so you'd never stay downstairs when it got dark. It was terrible.
That's crazy to think about, that there's an area of your house that you just literally could not go to after a certain time because awful things were happening. It's a crazy concept to think about, and a crazy way to live because this is happening. So did this start happening when you decided to move, or did you move because of it?
We moved because of it.
And it just got worse.
It got really bad, and it got to the point where no one wanted to be there anymore. We'd stayed in that house, I think, for about 20 years, and we just couldn't take it anymore. It started when I was really little. There was no problems at all, and then my nan passed away, and we started being stupid, looking into things, and it got bad, and then it just got terrible. It built up over that time, and we moved out because it got too much.
So then you move into this new house, and you're thinking, great, fresh start, no entities, no places in the house you can't go to, nothing chasing you, nothing throwing at you. When did you first notice that there was activity in your new house?
The day after we moved in.
That quickly?
Yeah, I remember everyone was really happy. It was really, really quiet, and we sort of thought, oh, at last we're at peace and we get to be normal. And then my brother said the following day that he'd seen some old lady sat in the corner of his room looking out the window all night long. And he was terrified of it. And I mean, he was 20 at the time. He wasn't a kid. He just did not like that room at night. And we thought, oh, maybe he imagined it, or, I don't know, dreamt it or something. We sort of thought, right, we'll ignore it. And then it was about 3 or 4 days after that, a picture came flying off the wall, and a tennis ball flew down the stairs, and we're sort of like, right, okay, it's starting again.
Right.
But it wasn't that bad, so we sort of ignored it for a while. But then the ensuite to my bedroom started having like this repetitive thing happening every night. You'd wake up the same time every day to the laundry bin lid moving and the taps in there turning on, even though they didn't actually run water, but you could hear water. And every day you would see like this sort of dark, shadowy thing come by the door. And it happened every day at the same time. It finished every day at the same time.
What time was that?
It was, I don't know, I know it ended at about 6 a.m. It was whenever the sun came up, it stopped. But it was about 3 or 4. It went on for hours, just turning the taps on in the bathroom, and it sounded like someone was getting ready in there. It was really strange. It was like someone was genuinely in there at the time. And that went on for, I don't know, about a month or two, and so I kind of had enough. And then I looked online what to do, and I found out you had to ask it to leave nicely, and there was a massive bang on the wall when I did tell it to leave, but it went, and we heard nothing from it since.
Wow.
And that was when it went quiet for about 6 months. It was quite nice.
So you had a 6-month gap where nothing was really going on because you asked it to leave you alone. It probably didn't like that, hence the big bang. But then I remember you telling me some other things started happening that got a little bit creepier. You heard your brother's voice or your mom's voice or something like that downstairs. Yeah. The door was opening, the window, right?
Yeah. One evening I was going downstairs to let someone in. They'd locked themselves out, and there was a man sat in the chair in the lounge. There was an armchair, and I reckon I must have saw him about 20 times through the time that he was here, and it was the creepiest thing I'd ever seen. The lights wouldn't turn on. We used Alexa, and it wasn't working at all. So I was standing in the dark, and he was sat in the chair, and I saw like a head and shoulders over this armchair, and I was, frozen. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, right, I'm going to run into the hallway, open the door, then I'm not on my own. And as I passed him, it was so strange because I've seen things before, and usually they look like a shadow, or you can kind of see through him. Right. It was like he was there. He was so solid, and he had like a blue tinge to him. I mean, we know him as the Blue Man because he looked dead. It was horrible. He really, really frightened me. I mean, I don't normally get bothered too much, I put up with things, but yeah, he genuinely frightened me. And we had, I think you turn the light on and he wasn't there after that, but I've seen him get up, walk out the chair, walk into the hallway. He never saw me. That was one thing I was pleased about. He never noticed me, but I absolutely hated him. And then we had voices that my mum heard of my brothers. We had flies, stacks and stacks of really huge flies. Like, they didn't even look like they were about the size of a bee. They were huge, and we had like 40 of them, even though the window wasn't open, and we had that 3 times. Everyone's seen dogs. I don't understand that. We've all seen these black dogs. I mean, they really creep me out. I mean, I saw one of them fairly recently. And I mean, we had a dog that was black and white years ago, but she doesn't look like that. That wasn't her. That was like a jet black thing. They really didn't like them at all. And everyone got scratched several times. And then there was an episode of banging constantly on our front door in the evenings. We thought we were being burgled. We rang the police on several occasions because it happened every single night. Wow. And then our windows kept getting left open downstairs. I still don't understand why that was. We actually broke the lock to try and keep them shut. It didn't work. They still opened, but and our smoke alarm went off. That still goes off to now. I mean, that went off about 2 weeks ago. Even though we changed the smoke alarm, we changed the batteries, We even took the batteries out for a while and it still went off. You know, it goes off constantly. And that all happened around the same time, and people kept getting scratched. And that's when I thought, right, I've had enough. And I spoke to you about it all. And because I think I thought I was going mad. And we started to lose pets as well. It was like one day they were fine, and then the next day they passed away. And I'd spoken to vets like a week before. They'd had a health check, whatever, and they said they were absolutely fine. They were healthy. And there was one time when I spoke to a vet. She's been in the trade for 20 years. She's the director of the practice. She'd never seen in that entire time a death like his, because there was nothing wrong with him at all. She had no explanation for it at all. And that's when I thought, right, I need to do something about this, because I have no idea what's going on and I'm worried for them.
It might help.
That's when I got in touch with you.
Yeah, it might help the listeners to explain kind of what you do a little bit with how you help out the animals that you have.
I rescue ones that have been really badly looked after. I mean, admittedly, I don't do it so much now because I worry for them, but I look after ones that have been badly, neglected, or ones that have been given up. And so my house is full of them, and it started getting to the point where they were healthy, there was nothing wrong with them, I'd got them back to good health, you know, they were fit and healthy, and then they were just dropping dead, and it was awful.
That
really
is
horrible.
awful. You do all that hard work and loving and caring to get these animals back to good health, and all of a sudden something bad happens. What kind of animals do you take in?
Budgies, guinea pigs, hamsters, gerbils, all the small ones, basically. Okay. All the little ones.
Yeah, I remember you sending me some videos of camera in the room where the animals are. But before we get into that, what was kind of like your last straw? You thought, all right, we got to do something about this. I got to talk to someone. What was the last straw, and what made you reach out to me?
The man in the chair. He seriously creeped me out. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. I've seen things, but nothing quite like him. He was so real. I could still picture him now. I mean, he was terrifying. He must have been really big as well, because the armchair I've got is big, and he was taller than it. So he was a big guy, and I'm little. I'm short. And it terrified me standing in the dark then. And
you call him the Blue Man. Does that mean other people have seen him as well?
Yeah, I know for that my uncle came around one night. He didn't know anything about him, and he said, I've just seen a blue guy walk through the hallway, and he walked through where the door used to be in our house, because it got moved. They've changed the layout downstairs, and he walked through where the door used to be. So obviously he must have been there before to know where the door was. But I thought that he described what he was wearing and everything, and I thought, well, that's exactly who I've just seen. So, and also my older brother saw him at one point out on our decking, and I thought, all right, okay, then this isn't me going mad. They're all seeing him. So right. Yeah, and it frightened my brother, and he's 28, so it must be pretty creepy.
But that's crazy. You saw him walk through where there used to be a doorway, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he sounds very more residual than anything else, because he's not necessarily interacting with you. He's walking in through a doorway that used to exist that's no longer a doorway, and that's what kind of happens in these residual hauntings. But then you have something else entirely that's making noises, that's moving things around. Things are being left open, you got flies in the house, you're hearing someone else's voice that's not there. That's crazy. And usually it's not to scare you, but I mean, we've talked about this, but it's usually not a good sign when those things kind of happen, especially when you hear someone else's voice, right? What made you reach out to me personally?
Because you're the only one that probably would believe me. I've spoken to family members, and some of them don't even believe me. I think they think I'm mad. So, and I mean, I know I'm not, and things have happened for like 15 years, but you still sit there and you question whether, am I seeing things? Am I hearing things? I mean, I know I'm not, but at the same time, when it's all going on, you're questioning whether you are. And I thought, all right, okay, I know someone that might actually understand. And I thought it was such a relief to be able to speak to someone that actually didn't think I was mad. And you genuinely helped, like, so much.
Well, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I helped with your sanity, and I'm glad I helped with calming down the spirits a little bit. But before we get into that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. The Spooky Shop is now open for Ghost Encounters merch. Visit ghost-encounters.com and click on Spooky Shop. This episode is brought to you by The Colony Meadery. If you haven't tried mead yet, it's alcohol made from honey, and it's the fastest growing alcoholic beverage in the United States. It's all natural, totally gluten-free, and delicious. And one of the best meaderies in the world is right here in the Lehigh Valley. Stop in and try a flight of meads, grab some bottles or cans to go, and experience some of the best booze in the world. They've got flavors ranging from tart and quaffable lemon laws and Wu-Tang Cran to cinnamon vanilla series of tubes and even the sweet heat of their mango habanero. Learn more at either location or at colonymeadery.com. Ghost Encounters podcast and show is sponsored by Phoenix Fire Media. Bring the heat to your online presence with their expert social media marketing, photography, and video productions. Visit phoenixfiremedia.com. If all you spooky people are enjoying the Ghost Encounters podcast, hit subscribe and give us 5 stars. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ghost Encounters PA. To watch full episodes of the Ghost Encounters show, visit ghost-encounters.com. And we are back. We are still in England with Georgia. So the last thing we're talking about is you kind of had enough and you wanted to reach out to me. I kind of saved your sanity a little bit because I believed you, and of course I do. I mean, you have other people that have been in your house that have also seen and heard the same exact thing. So you're definitely not insane. You definitely have been experiencing these hauntings for a very long time, not in just your first house, but now your current house as well, which sucks. You know, you think you're gonna go from one place to another, and it's gonna be quiet and safe, and all of a sudden now you have something totally new, and you know that's frustrating. But you reached out to me, you told me your story, and then you started sending me some videos. And I remember the videos that you sent me. It was of the room that you had, you know, the small animals in that you were nursing back to life. And, you know, obviously there's dust and there's dander, there's pets. So you can see that in the infrared videos, but then once in a while, and I see your face right now because we're on Zoom, but these orbs would come into the picture. And for those of you who have never really done an investigation or really looked into paranormal investigating or haven't done much with infrared video photography, now not only am I a paranormal investigator, but I also have my, you know, bachelor's degree in photography. I own a photography and marketing business, so I can tell the difference what's dust and dander versus what's an orb, right? The dust and dander is going to look like exactly what it is, dust and dander, just kind of small little tiny particles. They trickle down, they move slowly. But in the videos that you sent me, once in a while these huge orbs would fly into view, and they would move in really weird directions, things that, you know, it shouldn't move like that. Bugs don't even move like that. They would like swoop in, come to the camera, go in a completely different direction. And I was like, wow, there's definitely something going on in that room. And it was very unfortunate. I remember the one video you sent me, one of the orbs kind of just like goes right into, I don't forget if it was a hamster or a gerbil or a guinea pig, that was right in front of the camera. And you said like the next day he passed away for no reason.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, them orbs, I used to call it the snow effect because it looked like the ceiling was snowing. It was unbelievable. We don't have any now. They've all gone, but it was every night. We had a sensor on the thing and it was going off all the time, usually around between 2 to about 4. It would go off every night, and they would come up to the camera, these little light bulbs, and zoom off in the most strangest directions, and there would be hundreds of times, and they went on for hours. The camera would pick up like 50 different videos over the night, and I sent you the good ones, but you know, they went on for ages, and you could spend hours looking through the footage on them cameras because they went on forever.
Yeah, and for those, you know, if there's any skeptics that are listening, but, you know, I gave Georgia some suggestions on what to do, and the first thing I said was try to sage that room, you know. Obviously, you moved all the animals out because the sage smoke is probably not great for tiny, you know, animals like that. And now you're saying, you know, no orbs in that room anymore, right?
None at all. I went on there yesterday actually just to check because I don't check so much anymore. And you literally, there's nothing in there at all.
That's good.
Literally nothing.
And how are
It's
the
really-
animals that you have now doing? Are they in much better health and,
Yeah,
surviving?
they're fine. Even the old ones, even the ones that are weaker, they're all fine. They're all doing fine.
That's great.
There's no problem at all. It's really good. And with the sage, there's a spray we use as well if you can't burn it, and that is fine with the pets. It does the same thing. I think you need to do it more because it's probably not as good, but we do it once a week, once every couple of weeks, and it keeps them away. It's fine in there now.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks that you have to do that, but at least the animals are safe. But it's crazy how something that seems so simple can actually help calm down paranormal activity. And, for any of those people that are listening that actually have activity in their house, first thing I will always tell people is try saging. Try to smudge the house. The best thing you can do is open up all the windows, do a deep clean, sage the house, ask for whatever entity that's in there to go away, to move on, to leave your house, remind them it's not theirs. And most of the time, it'll work. Occasionally, you'll have times where it's something that has to be repeated, like in your case. You just have to keep doing it, but it's working. And in very rare cases, it will just not do anything at all. I would say, at least for the most part. Like I remember you told me when you first started doing, like you did it, and then it would calm down for a while, and then all of a sudden it would start back up again.
Comes back with force.
Yeah. But not just the orbs would come back with force. You said like the noises and the bangs would come back in force, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I know for a fact that everyone got scratched more, which happened a lot, and there was things like I saw like a floating head in a bathroom. It was horrible, and the smells were bad as well. There was things like rotting eggs and rotting meat, and the worst smells you could imagine were everywhere in the house. And everything sort of, the bangs were louder. There was bangs on the pet cages, and to the point where the pets got scared. You could hear the scared noises on the cameras. It was so sad. And it got to the point where, we called a priest in because it got so bad. And I remember there was one occasion when I'd seen a head in the bathroom. I mean, that was weird in itself. Normally you see a body, but no, I saw just this head. And I called my brother around, and he saw someone in the garden that then when he shouted at it because he got annoyed that it was there.
Right.
It ran off through the walls to the neighbour's house, and he went home and there was about 20 scratches all up his arms. And I mean, I don't understand why he would have that, but whatever was there, I mean, it still scratches him now. So I don't think whatever was here or still is here likes him, but it scratches him more than ever. And when we got the priest in, that didn't help either. In fact, I think it got worse. I mean, that day again, my mum got scratched. They turned on lights in my fish tank and they slung the sage kit on the floor. I remember that. It chucked it right on the floor.
I guess it doesn't like when you sage, huh?
No. It got worse after the priest came. So I think I ended up getting a protection crystal from you. That helped a lot. I have that now around the pet cages.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that the stuff came back full force, and it's pretty scary. I said you could try a priest and see how that goes. I'm not a religious person, but hey, try anything you can, right? And then you said that kind of angered it even more, which tells me, with everything else and the smell of rotting flesh, usually, I don't want to scare you, but we've talked about this, usually that points to something more demonic or evil in a sense. And, at least this thing is not really trying to harm you too badly. Yeah, your brother's getting scratched, but it's not as bad as it could be. I agree. But you were scared, and I felt so bad. So I mailed you a protective crystal that I have that was blessed by a witch, and I guess that helped you, right?
Yeah, massively. I mean, even now, I keep that around the pets that are older. It stays on their cage, and it seems to help. I mean, also have a Bible in there. I mean, I'm not religious either, but I mean, I've got rosaries, I've got a Bible, I've got everything around that lounge, and it seems to help a lot. I mean, the police may not help, but everything else did. You know, it eased it. I mean, it's still here now. You still got a lot of things, but it's bearable. I've learned to live with it. I mean, and if I can do that, then, you know, I'm happy that I can just live with it. I mean, even now you get bangs on the walls. I mean, we had them today, but you know, you can manage with it because it's not doing what it used to. It's toned itself down a lot.
I remember the other thing that I told you to do, because you were saying that like there's just this heaviness and darkness kind of in the house. Everyone was at each other's throats, and everyone was in a bad mood and going at each other. And you know, that's what these kind of entities do, is they feed off that negative energy. They feed off your sadness, your anger, and it makes them stronger. And the more stuff they do, the more stressed you get, it's just a never-ending cycle. So you have to break that cycle somehow. And the best thing to do is get out of the house for a little bit, do something that you enjoy, you know, try to make the house as bright and lively and happy as possible. And usually that'll calm something like that down, because you're then making it weaker by doing all that. And I guess that helped as well.
Yeah, it did. I think, to be honest, when it first picked up, there was a lot of arguing, particularly with my older brother, and it tended to get worse quick because the whole house was in, you know, there was a lot of atmosphere going on, and thinking about it, I don't even know why that arguments continued. It just, everyone was in well, he was in a really, really bad mood, and everyone else was kind of sick of it. So, you know, it all sort of escalated, and yeah, I think it eases a lot if you keep it light in the house. And that's what I mean. I live here now with my mum and my brother, and it's always light, you know, we're always having a laugh, and it's always really happy here, and it helps if you're like that. And if one day you do get like days, because there is days when
of course
the whole house is really, really miserable, just get out and get away from the house, and you instantly feel fine the minute you leave.
Yeah.
It's not much better.
Yeah. It's crazy how different it really feels when you exit a place like that and just literally just step outside. It's, you know, rejuvenating. It's weight off your shoulders. You can breathe again, you know. I felt so bad because there's only so much I could do from over 3,000 miles away. You know, it's not like I can just, you know, hop in my car and get there, obviously. But who knows? Maybe one day I'll make it to England and can say hi and check out the house and see what the heck's going on.
It.
But I'm glad things have finally calmed down and is livable and bearable. But you're just messaging me today and yesterday. You guess you have some new developments in the haunting at your house, right?
Yeah, I mean, for a while we've had bangs on the dividing wall between our neighbour. It's always in threes, which concerns me a bit. And it happens when she's out because I see her leave. But we chose to ignore it. We thought, right, the less we, you know, we're not going to bother it. If it can do what it wants, no one cares. And it just does the knocks. And then I thought, right, I need to go into the downstairs, what used to be a bedroom, it used to be my brother's. And no one went in it because it makes the weirdest noises in there. I mean, when he used to be in there, he was into all sorts of things that he shouldn't have been. And, you know, I think he definitely had some kind of occult book in there. That he never likes to talk about it, but I know he got one because his wife got it for him. So he definitely had one, and he never tells you what he did with it. So that, for me, makes me think he did something.
That's concerning. And, if you know, brother, if you're listening, maybe stay away from the occult books, or, you know, definitely don't try to conjure something up, because looks like that may or may not have happened.
Yeah, and so I'm in that study now. It's now my study, and I mean, it's been pretty quiet in there to start with, apart from when you go in there, you instantly feel tired. You could literally fall asleep, I don't know why, and you get a headache instantly. But I can deal with that. I get on with it. You know, I'll open the window, it's in fresh air, it'll be fine. And then my dog was in there, left a doll on the chair. I left it there every night. I was the last one in there, shut the door. She stays up in my bedroom with me. Come down in the morning, the doll was on the floor. I tell myself it's nothing, even though, you know, I didn't move it, she didn't move it. And then I go into the kitchen, talk with my mum. I see this sort of I mean, it was another really clear little boy. He must have only been about 5 foot. He was really little, and looking right at me. I mean, normally they don't see me. He definitely did, and again, it creeped me out. But you know, I told my mum later in the evening. She said to me, the whole area around there smelled of like a butcher's shop, like raw meat, and it did smell. It was awful, and the whole time I thought, right, okay, it worked in that when I saw a little boy, the smell in the room was of this sort of raw meat. And so in the evening, my brother came round, the older one that was into the occult came round, wanted to check out the study as it used to be his bedroom. You know, he wanted to see what I'd done with it, and I completely changed it. And he was parked outside. We were in the driveway, and he comes down and says, "You're having problems in that room, aren't you?" And we said, "Well, yeah, how do you know?" And he said, "Well, the curtains moved, and you know, I know you're here. No one's in there, and the curtains moving, and you're not there. And
Right.
The window wasn't open. It wasn't windy. The curtain moved." So he goes into the room, talks about saging it, and then he comes out and he's got 2 massive scratches on his arm. Like really from elbow down to wrist, it was massive ones, and I thought, right, okay, that thing in there don't like him.
Yeah, he's the one that always gets scratched, right?
Yeah, and more times than not, it's him. I think I've been scratched twice. My mum's been scratched once, and my little brother's been scratched once, but he's been scratched about 10 times.
Wow.
He gets scratched really bad as well. He gets like loads of them. You know, I get like one. I think I got like a big one on my neck, and my mum got them. I think it was on her arm, but he gets absolutely stacks of them, loads on his arms at one time. But yeah, they're really bad ones as well. Yeah, they drew blood, the ones this time. So
jeez, holy shit.
Yeah, they're bad ones.
Well, that's interesting. He's had the occult books. He won't say what he did with them. He's the one getting scratched the most. He knew you were having problems in that room. You know, like that's the first thing he asked you. So a little concerning what your brother did there, but maybe one day he'll divulge in what he actually did with the occult books. But well, I wish you the best of luck with anything. Always, I am here for any kind of questions or just to talk or ideas. Hopefully the study calms down a bit. You know.
It's not too bad. I can manage. As long as he ain't in there, he's the one that gets bothered by it more.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your years of haunting with me and all of our fans.
Yeah, it's been fun. I really enjoyed this.
Very good. On a side note, do you actively listen to the podcast?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Do you have...
I'll intend to listen to this one anyway as well.
Do you have a favorite episode so far, or multiple favorites?
They're all really good. I don't think I've ever found one that I don't like.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. But none of them like jump out at you that you thought were the most interesting, or...
They're always gripping. I'm really into the paranormal. I always have been. I mean, understandably I am, but I mean, I always find anything to do with it interesting. And to be honest, there's not enough out there talking about it. I always looked online before I met you to find things that would help, and no one ever does find anything. Like they always sort of muck about and make things up. And you know, to find someone that actually genuinely gets it and it shares it on here is really relieving, to be honest. It's nice to find someone that genuinely is genuine.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and that's what I try to do, you know, because talking about these things can help, and, you know, that's why we also started that section of the podcast for Spooky Fan Story, where, you know, fans submit their own ghost stories in, and so that people can hear what everyone else has dealt with and been through in their lives and think, oh, well, you know, maybe mine wasn't so bad, or, you know, maybe, oh man, mine could be a lot worse, or, you know, wow, I went through something similar. So I really hope for all of you listening that, you know, hearing these stories do help, and I encourage everyone to send in more Spooky Fan Stories, because we need more of them, especially for season 3 that will be starting soon. Good luck with everything. Again, I'm here for any kind of help or questions, suggestions, or just to talk about how the haunting's going, and thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been really fun.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So that was Georgia's story with the hauntings that she has experienced in her old house and in her current house. like I said, there's only so much help I can provide someone being over 3,000 miles away. But I'm glad the suggestions that I gave her actually helped, and I'm really happy about that. Hopefully things stay kind of calm and where they are. If anyone out there, has any questions, needs any suggestions, just wants to talk or share their story about what's going on, you can always reach out to me on our social channels or email us. And if you do want to share your story, I highly encourage you to submit spooky fan stories, because we need them for season 3. Even if the spooky fan stories aren't about you necessarily, it could be a local legend in your town, something that happened to a family member, or something that happened where you live. We'll accept any kind of spooky fan stories that are out there. I love hearing from our fans and hearing the stories that have happened, and different stories that happen throughout the world, and it's very interesting to hear. And I've had a lot of feedback that other people really love hearing the spooky fan stories as well. Before we go, I wanted to kind of do a year-end recap for Season 2 of Ghost Encounters podcast. On the episodes, I usually have polls. They're only on Spotify, but usually I put some kind of poll or question on each podcast episode. So one of the episodes I put polls on was Season 2, Episode 8, Cursed Movies. And I asked everyone, which of these cursed movies is your favorite? And from the responses, it seems like everyone's kind of torn between Poltergeist and The Exorcist. Both very good movies, both very different, and both good for their own reasons. So I understand why those two movies are kind of the top two that people would be torn by for which one's their favorite. And then I had a poll on Season 2, Episode 10, Creepy Christmas, and I asked who seems more terrifying, Krampus, Grilla, Hans Trapp, or Frau Perchta. And the poll was unanimous. Every single person voted for Krampus as the most terrifying. Another poll I had was on Season 2, Episode 14, Reincarnation, and I asked everyone, do you believe in reincarnation? Again, the poll was unanimous. Every single person voted yes, that they believe in reincarnation. I think one of my favorite questions I've asked was for Season 2, Episode 16, Haunted Dolls. The poll that I put up on Spotify was, would you visit the Island of the Dolls? And everyone was torn between this one. 60% of people said no, and 40% of people actually said yes, that they would visit the Island of the Dolls. That is such a creepy place. That was a really good episode. And right after that, Season 2, Episode 17, Haunted Islands, the poll was, would you go to Pavalia? And again, unanimous. 100% of people actually said yes, they would go to Pavalia. And after that, Season 2, Episode 18, Cursed Objects. One of the things that I did research on was the Thomas Busby chair. And I asked, would you dare sit in Thomas Busby's chair? 73% of you said no, good choice, but 27% of you said yes. I don't know if that 27% are just curious to see if anything would happen, or if 27% of you have a death wish, but I definitely would not sit in Thomas Busby's chair. That was another good episode. A lot of weird cursed objects. We learned a lot in that episode, especially with Jordan's research about the 2 diamonds. But I still can't believe that there is a cursed chair in England that is now hung up on the wall, because if you sit in it, well, you're probably going to die. In the previous episode, Season 2, Episode 19, Spectral Dreams, the poll was, have you ever had sleep paralysis? And 56% of you said no, but 44% of you said yes. And for those of you that have experienced sleep paralysis, I know how terrifying that is. Just going back through some of these episodes, we've had a great season. I mean, this season was absolutely awesome. We did a lot of great research. We learned a lot about some new things that I've never even heard about, like in Cursed Objects, when Hannah talked about the crone of the Catskills. That crone, that statue thing, is so creepy, and to know that this story actually happened and that this thing exists is terrifying in itself. Season 2, Episode 9, Haunted Theaters. That was another great episode. I can't believe how many of these theaters are so old and are still actually theaters, and how haunted they are. Like the Iroquois Theater that I did research on, that really awful fire that broke out and killed hundreds and hundreds of people, and now people see like ash-type shadowy figures sitting in the seats and things like that. It's just crazy to think about the tragedies that have happened all over. It's horrible, but have made these places so incredibly haunted. Season 2, Episode 2, Lizzie Borden was another great episode. I knew about Lizzie Borden. but I never really dove that far into her life and that far into the story. So it was really interesting to learn about everything that happened, all the little details that we know. And for me, without a doubt, I think she killed her dad and her dad's wife. But I was getting a lot of comments throughout social media that a lot of people don't think she did it. Hey, with these stories, like for example Lizzie Borden, where it's not 100% known whether she did it or not, we're not here to try to convince you one way or another. We're here to present to you our research, our findings. We're here to present to you our thoughts and what we think has happened because, well, we're the ones talking. So we're not here to hurt anyone's feelings, and that goes with the paranormal stuff too. Obviously, we believe in the paranormal, and there are people out there that don't, and that's completely okay. Most of those people probably have never had a paranormal experience. They've never had an actual ghost encounter to scare the shit out of them and make them believe that this actually happens and this actually exists. Outside of the paranormal, season 2 episode 1, a lot of people say that one's great. It's shark attacks. It's not paranormal, it's not serial killers or aliens, it's not supernatural, but it's still gruesome and it's still terrible history. I'll call it terrible history. These shark attacks were really gruesome. Something fun, me and Jordan were with our group of friends and her family, and they were having actually a Shark Week party, and I hosted shark trivia for everyone. It was a lot of fun. We did it outside. I had the projector up, so the trivia was on a projector outside at night. It was really cool. And I had some questions in there about the shark attacks that we talked about in the podcast. So for the people that were there that listened to the podcast, they got those answers immediately, which is cool. But yeah, this has been such a great season. Thank you all so much for listening. I mean, we wouldn't be where we're at without all of you listening and sharing the podcast around. We're now at over 25,000 plays. I mean, our followers grow each day, and this wouldn't be possible without all of you listening. So thank you all very, very much for listening. We're going to be back soon with season 3 of Ghost Encounters podcast. Very exciting. We have some great ideas, but I would love to hear from all of you. What is it that you want to hear? What is it that you want us to do research on? What kind of topics or specific stories, hauntings, urban legends do you want to hear? I want to know what our listeners want us to do. So please write to us. Email ghostencounterspa@gmail.com. Follow us on our social channels. Don't forget to send your spooky fan stories to GhostEncountersStories@gmail.com. And I really wish Jordan was here today. Unfortunately, as I said, she couldn't, and she's really sad that she couldn't be here today too, especially for the last episode of season 2. But we will both be back with season 3 very soon. That's all the time we have for today. Stay spooky.